Have you ever been faced with a situation, small business owner comes in and you talk through the process and you find out perhaps maybe a loan is not what they're needing?
Can be. Typically funds that go into a business come from one of three places. Either you have a traditional lender or non-traditional lender, you have the owner, or you have a vendor where you're getting vendor credit. And so from the standpoint of lending, if it's not traditional bank financing, if the risk is such that it probably doesn't fit the criteria that we would look at as a traditional lender, then you would look at outside lending, which would either be equity, which means you would give up part of the business to have someone invest money in the business,
Okay.
or non-bank debt, which could be bonds. That doesn't happen a whole lot, but that's where you're actually giving collateral to other investors behind the money they inject. And then, of course, vendor credit would be if you set up your business to where that you're like a retailer and the wholesaler's offering some kind of terms on the product that you have.
Right.
That you need to be very careful with because obviously if you are in a market where you have competitors and you are financing all your business on vendor credit and your competitors are paying cash, so perhaps you get to a seasonal part of the year.
Right.
The ones that are paying cash are probably going to get the faster or better product selection than you would be. So I would just say that's probably to be used sparingly.
Okay.
And so then the last step would be putting your own money in. And again, those are typically situations where the risk is such that it's more of an investor or shared ownership versus traditional bank financing.
Okay. So the business owners talk through the process internally. They've looked at their current finances. They do feel like they didn't want to proceed with, seeking a loan. What types of documents should they come in hand? Because, they always say it's based on those financial records.
Sure.
And I'm certain some of those documents would be different from an established business as opposed to a startup.
Yes.
So what would they need visiting a loan officer?
So the fundamental question that we're always going to ask, we being the bank, is who is the borrower? So you have to initially establish what type of structure business you are. If it's new, it's a startup. If it's a lower risk type business, you may just be a sole proprietorship. In that case, we would just need a copy of your assumed name certificate.
Okay.
Beyond that, then you get into corporations and partnerships, and there's advantages to different ones depending on the type of business. And most of the time it's related to taxation and risk. But in any case, what we would need essentially to start with is we need to know who the borrower is, and we would need the formation or entity documents that were used to establish the company that are filed with the Secretary of State. And of course, we would ask you to personally guarantee that, so that doesn't absolve you from having liability, but it just answers the question of who is going to be the borrower. So once they have that, then we would need the associated financial statements on those entities, whether it's a corporation, partnership, sole proprietorship, et cetera.
Is there a certain length of time on those financial statements?
Typically, we like to see at least 3 full years, and then if we're in an interim period during the year, if you have some year-to-date financials, and when I say financials, that typically is the balance sheet, the income statement. Some people call it profit and loss.
Right.
And then if you sell on accounts receivable, we want to see what the accounts receivable are, especially if it's a working capital line of credit secured by those receivables. And we like to see those aged by payment. But that 3 years of financials is a good start, plus any sort of year-to-date financials.
Excellent. Well, great information, James, and I appreciate you sharing today. And it's a great start to our 3-part series on credit, specifically to small business owners. But that's all the time that we have for this particular segment. Join James and me for additional segments as we look at some common pitfalls for new business owners that they may face, and more importantly, how you can avoid those mistakes. Until then, just remember that knowledge is power when it's shared between the T's. Thanks for watching.